Today, I want to introduce you to a few resources that may be helpful in your faith journey. Hello friends, good to be with you as always. Thank you for taking a few minutes to be with me today. Today I want to talk about three resources that are online that you may find interesting as supporting your faith journey. There are obviously all kinds of available resources online for this kind of thing, but I want to lift up a few of them for you today, beginning with one that's kind of close to home. Some of you may have heard about this. It's the Bible in a Year podcast by Father Mike Schmitz, who I believe is based out of Duluth. There was a recent story in one of our local news stations about this podcast. It's become wildly popular. And in my own house, I've become familiar with it because my wife, Amy, has become a huge fan of it. She was actually just having coffee with a friend. Amy was recounting this to me and telling this friend about this podcast and shared the story that this friend said, "My, you're so excited about this, Amy." So she at least is one person who's found it very helpful, and actually a few other friends of mine have also found their way to it. So we'll link to all of these things, by the way, in the description. But again, it's the Bible in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz. I've heard really, really good things about it, and so I would invite you to check that out. Again, somewhat close to home. The other one also has a local connection. I did an episode a while ago about Lent Madness, and our new friends at that organization, it's actually an organization called Forward Movement, which is a evangelical arm of the Episcopal Church, sent us a nice note, and the executive director, turns out, is a gentleman named Reverend Scott Gunn, who is a graduate of Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. And Scott very graciously reached out to me and said something like, I checked out the website of the church and these podcasts, and for a St. Olaf grad, you're doing okay. So thank you for those kind words, Scott. In any case, in addition to Lent Madness, this organization, Forward Movement, does something called a daily prayer. And again, it's a simple prayer for the day, sort of a reflection on a Bible passage along with a prayer reflection. So we will link to that as well. And I hope you find it useful. They also do a number of other activities. I actually wrote to Scott. He didn't have a chance to get back to me before we started taping this about whether that was the most appropriate thing to lift up, but given my quick review of the site, I think it is. So again, the daily prayer from Forward Movement. And then finally, I will lift up, I'm sure I've talked about this gentleman before, but I want to lift up Bishop Robert Barron. He is an associate bishop in Los Angeles. He's been on YouTube for a long time. He is actually, other than the Pope, he's the most followed Catholic on social media. And he has all kinds of resources. Both he and his ministry called Word on Fire have all kinds of resources. I couldn't possibly begin to count all of them for you here, but I want to lift up a couple of videos that you may want to check out. The first actually was pre-COVID, and it's a abbreviated video of a longer talk he gave at the Library of Congress back in November of 2019. It's called Called by God, Bishop Barron in Washington, D.C. It gives you a sense, at least, of his longer talk there, which you can also find. The other talk he gave was in September of 2020. This one is almost an hour long, so it's much longer, and it's called Ideas Have Consequences. So if you're interested in learning about how four different philosophers inform our culture today, I would commend it to you. If you're interested, these aren't online resources, but a couple books by him. One is called To Light a Fire on the Earth, and the other is called Arguing Religion. I think I've actually talked about this one. This is based on talks he gave at Facebook and Google, and one of his particular gifts is an ability to talk to people who are not people of faith, who are not Christian, but who might be interested or maybe even opposed to issues of faith. But he has a good way of bridging that gap. And of course, his talks at Facebook and Google, and I think he eventually spoke at Amazon as well. This is a nice introduction to that. So again, a few resources. I would love, by the way, I'm sure many of you listening to this have your own ideas about resources that have been helpful to you, whether they're prayer or Bible studies. It'd be very helpful for our other viewers and listeners to know what those are. So if you're willing, could you comment on those below? Thanks as always for being with me. Be well, stay in touch, and God bless.